All right, hello guys. So we're back with another stream. I wasn't sure what I was even gonna do today, and I was like, you know what? We'll just do some hot takes. We'll discuss some things that I've seen in the community that I kind of, I guess, made as hot takes, or maybe just like stuff that people are divided on right now in the community relating to House of the Dragon. I am talking mainly about House of the Dragon, but if you guys do want to drop some like random stuff that you guys think is kind of controversial, but do what you want to do. Hi Radical, how are you? You know what? Take care of you. Thank you for stopping in for a little while, Radical. Hi Random, how are you? How are you? But yeah, anybody stopping in, if you want to give me any hot takes or anything, let me know. I made a little bit of a list, a little bit of a starting for discussion points and things. Dakota, the divisive man that he is, he's probably got some hot takes about House of the Dragon. Who knows what he's gonna say. Hot take: Rhaenyra isn't a developed character, and Rhaenys sucked. Okay, good starting spot because I actually had something about Rhaenys that I did want to talk about already. So let's talk about the first part of it. Rhaenyra isn't a developed character. So in terms of Rhaenyra from season 1 to season 2, I wouldn't say she isn't a developed character. I will say for being the main character of the show, she is quite underdeveloped. Like, she doesn't have as much stuff that is interesting, right? She's really just right now at right where she is right now. She is a character that is kind of one-dimensional. She's a good person that is just kind of pent up. She can't do anything. She can't act. She can't do what she wants to do. So season 2, her development has been pretty stagnant. She hasn't really grown from season 1. She's the same character. And so for me personally, I do think, like, if you want to look at it from the point of view of Rhaenyra isn't as developed as she could be, I would say yes, that's true. I think season 1 did a much better job of actually developing the character, because that is, you're setting the groundwork for the character. So a lot of it is development. And so in a lot of ways, I think they have struggled to, after they set the groundwork of the character, to evolve and change the character. So that would be where I would kind of agree with you on that. Rhaenys sucked. So Rhaenys is a weird one, because I think Rhaenys is almost completely destroyed based off of one scene. Episode 9 completely destroyed the character. It's unfortunate, but it's just how it is, right? Everything that she says in season 2 almost has no meaning based upon the fact of what she did at the end of season 1. So yeah, I think, to me, when you look at that idea, it's a little weird. We also have Aerys the Second in chat now. We have so many like random Targaryens, but hey, man, Aerys, you're pretty cool. I like fire. You like fire. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. But no, I think even Ashley realizes, we talked about this in the last stream, Ashley doesn't like Rhaenys in the show either, right? Like, she likes Rhaenys because of the book version of the character. And so you already want to like her in the show. I don't know if Rhaenys is Ashley's favorite character, but definitely one of those. And so she is just not a fan of, like, underdeveloped character that just got destroyed by one scene. I think if you remove episode 9, Rhaenys is a solid character, still not a great character, still underdeveloped because we didn't get enough time with the character in general. But I think the character is, like, ruined by basically one scene. Which of my children took over after me on the throne? Oh, your son Viserys. He was always a good kid, and he took over after Aerys. Eve Best was still great, though. Agreed. She did very good in the role. And that's the hard part, is, right, is like separating the actress, from the character, because the performance of the actual character was great, but what the character was given just kind of didn't work and didn't make it as good as it could have been. And that's for all of House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon doesn't have many issues in terms of acting. Smash that like button like Damon Dream smashed his mom. Of course, Dakota, of course. Been away on vacation the last 3 weeks and just watched the last 3 episodes. So let's see what people say. Yes, Reese. Unfortunate time, take a vacation with House of the Dragon, coming out. But I hope your vacation was awesome. Hot take. Episode 5 of season 2 felt like filler kind of to me. Well, Radical, in a lot of ways, episode 2 is it's in theory what you think about when you hear a build-up episode. That's what episode 2 is, right? But it's the way you handle that build-up is why I think episode 2 is so good. Because episode 2 fittingly takes everything that was built up in the last episode, has a reaction to it. So you have the Cargill fight at the end, so it has a reaction. So it still has a repercussion to the action that happened in the first episode. It builds on every single person's kind of psyche and the way they look at it, right? I think the performance of Aegon really was telling. It was a bunch of different people reacting to grief and guilt, which is what really made the episode very strong. And it didn't have many like writing issues or plot questionable decisions. And so I think that is quite a hot take, because episode 2 of season, I read that completely wrong. Radical, I read that completely wrong. I thought you were talking about episode 2, but the same argument almost applies for episode 5 as well, Radical, because they're basically the same in terms of they come after a big episode, a big moment, and they're a reactionary. The reason I think you feel like it's more filler, and why I think a lot of people feel like it's more filler, is because it wasn't a satisfying reactionary episode. There was no big moment, which is fine. You don't need big moments in every episode. It's just some of the things just were questionable and didn't work for some people, or maybe it worked for some people but didn't for others. We've talked about this like a dead horse now. You know, we talked about King's Landing. That was kind of all over the place. Even when you look at the Dragon Seeds, the execution of it was kind of interesting. You think about Daemon and Rhaenyra's plots haven't really, gone anywhere in the episode. So I think that's a normal feeling to have from episode 5. I think it's definitely one of the weaker ones of season 2, but I don't think it's the worst. Hot take. The writing is a bit too heavy-handed, especially around foreshadowing the fact that a dragon war is destructive. I'd rather they show us, not tell us. Reese, I think that is an interesting topic, because I think at times, right, I think the writing does a good job of showing and not telling, right? I think sometimes they do a great job of this. Like, if you think about the opening shot with Corlys, right after getting the news of Rhaenys' death, and the way the actor, portrays this character that is broken from losing his wife, his probably his closest companion, they do a good job of it. And then other times they don't do such a good job of it. So I do think, right, that maybe is a criticism of House of the Dragon, that sometimes they do a bit too much telling and not enough showing sometimes. And maybe it's the other way around as well, right? I think when you think about like the Aemon and Helena scene, that needs more dialogue in it, but it doesn't. It only has, one line of dialogue. So I don't know. Hot take. Daemon should have kept his book plot. The haunted house got old. So I think this is interesting, because I kind of have something that connects to that, Kenshin, that I find very interesting about the way they've done Daemon. So I went into this season, and a lot of my predictions, a lot of the things I did for like the blacks versus the greens, the pros, cons of each side. One thing I talked about a lot is that the blacks have more military strategy on their side based upon Corlys and Daemon. The fighting in the Stepstones, even Daemon, gathering men to defend his brother for, being the king at the Great Council. So in a lot of ways, it almost feels out of place that Daemon is struggling so much with just rallying men to his cause, when we've been given instances in the past where he seems like he's been good at those things. Now, you could say in the show, it's kind of more implied that Daemon just has like the Velaryons backing him, and he doesn't like have other hired, people coming to his cause, or people just because he's a prince, they want to back him because he can be very, a very good leader is kind of what I'm trying to say. So I don't know. I think it is interesting the way they've handled Daemon. I think a lot of it is, okay, they didn't do enough with the Stepstones, in my opinion. They didn't really, give us that background of Daemon at the Great Council. So the character in the show just comes off very different than the book. And they're kind of going for, in my opinion, the Daemon arc is supposed to, again, we don't really know yet because we don't know what the end point of this Daemon Harrenhal arc is yet. But if I had to guess what it is, I would guess it's Daemon, being able to overcome his demons and not becoming a good person, right? Daemon's already a villain. He's done too many things that have been morally not justified or bad actions and have gotten innocent people killed or hurt or harmed, whatever. Kind of the Alice Rivers to Daemon's speech in episode 5. So, yeah, I do think Daemon is in a weird spot because I think they're trying to get him to a place where he overcomes these things and is able to grow as a character. Kind of similar to like a Theon type-esque character. Hi, Matthew. How are you being in and out for this one? Sounds good. Another hot take. Daemon sleeping with his mom is a good choice, actually. I love the idea that Daemon has been told he's so much like his mother, but he's never met her. So, Reese, I think the reason I don't like him sleeping with his mom is because I don't think it really does anything for the character, right? Everything that we get out of that scene, whether it's, Daemon, feeling hollow because he didn't have, a mother to tell him those, not really a mother or really a father to kind of like tell him those things. Or I shouldn't say father. He had his father, but it didn't have his mother to kind of tell him those things, right? And he always wanted to be the favorite son, all these things, and the great warrior. He was always trying to fill this void, right? And so having all these insecurities that, he's having while having sex with this woman or with his mother, I think it could have been done simply without the sex part of it. You could have just had his mother coming in and Daemon questioning who this woman is, and she's like, yeah, I'm your mother, and all this stuff. And then basically saying the same type of dialogue to Daemon, right? Like, it doesn't change that dynamic of what the scene wanted. I don't know. Hot take, the sex scenes are really unnecessary. I actually think that's not even a hot take. I think that's pretty, like, common take, I guess. Hot take, the show will start separating itself more from the book in future episodes, even more so than now. That is definitely a hot take, because I already feel like the show has definitely started to go away from the book in terms of, like, a lot of stuff. If you think about Blood and Cheese, very different from the book. You think about certain characters that we've been getting, which is, and again, when we say book changes, I don't mean that's all bad stuff. I'm just talking about changes in general that they've done to characters. So, I don't know. How many seasons are they planning to drag the show out for, and will it be 2 years between each season? I would guess Chaos's Ladder, it's going to be 2 years between each season based upon the fact that we're probably going to have Dunk and Egg next year. I do think we'll probably see 2-year skips in between the seasons. I think it'll probably be about 4 seasons, maybe 5. Hello, hot take. Hi, Walter, by the way. This was the type of episode that was needed. This episode was about analyzing characters' fallouts after Rookshark. Yeah, Walter, I do think the actual, like, what the episode was going for was needed. I don't think that's actually the criticism, at least from the common fans. I think there are people that are, just not liking the slower parts of the show, the build-up parts of the show. And I think it's necessary, right? You can't have battle and then another battle right after. It usually doesn't go well. It's not, the pacing is going to hurt, right? There's reasons why if you watch, The Two Towers, you watch The Return of the King, you watch Game of Thrones season 2 or 3 or whatever. Actually, I should say season 2 and like season 1, I guess. But when you have like big battles, right, you want to pace them in a way where it's not always action. It's not always you're on the high. You want to have some moments where it's a little bit of downtime to reflect on what you just saw. So you can, as the characters are reacting to things that are happening, you are also kind of taking those things in. So, for instance, The Two Towers. A lot of the times between the battle stuff, you'll go to Merry and Pippin with the Ents, which is the complete other vibe, right? It's Merry and Pippin, wanting to get into action, but can't, right? They, Treebeard and the Ents, well, at least in the movie, they don't want to go to war. And so you have that dynamic, or you'll see, Sam and Frodo, and it's kind of a slower pace than the big battle that's going on. It's actually one of the best parts, I think, of how Peter Jackson adapted Two Towers, because the Two Towers, I think of all 3 of the books, actually has the worst pacing. But yeah. Hot take, the Game of Thrones reference takes away from the Dance of the Dragons as a war a bit. This war starting because of confusion was strange. Yeah, I don't know if that was a hot take. Radical, I think, well, I guess that is, because I've been very outspoken. I did not like the way they shifted Alicent's character after episode 8. I felt like Alicent was probably, outside of Viserys, was the best written character of season 1. And then, like, the back, like, episode, because she's really just in episode 9, was not very good. So I don't know. I do kind of agree. I don't like everything being confusion, everything being coincidences. I do think that's a legitimate criticism. Hi, Ghost. Hot take: if Aegon didn't have Otto at the start, he would have been a good king. I don't know. That is a hot take. I don't know. Because I think Otto was much wiser than Aegon. So, like, if Otto doesn't have Aegon at the very, or if Aegon doesn't have Otto at the very start, the issue you run into is Otto laid a lot of the foundations for things to happen that haven't happened yet in the show, or if you're looking at Fire and Blood. I think it's just as likely that Aegon would have actually, like, lost the war, like, right away. I don't know, though. That's a good topic, though, Dakota. I felt some scenes were unnecessary and random, like the scene in the Vale with Lady Arryn, even though I love the location. I agree and I disagree, because you do need a scene that starts the groundwork of the Vale plot with Rhaena, because you have to have something, and that's why it's a build-up kind of episode. And I do like that scene. I don't think that's one of the scenes I have a problem with in the episode. I think the episode as a whole, that part wasn't the part that really made me question the episode's rating. I actually do like that Lady Arryn and Rhaena, maybe have some hostilities towards each other because of, their deal with Rhaenyra and all that, but they also are very similar. They're two characters that feel like they can't do anything. They feel helpless. I really like that dynamic. It sets up a very interesting, like, I guess, dialogue between the two characters going forward, and I think their plot will get more time as we go on. Hello, Aegon. Also, Aerys is also in this one. Aerys the second, not the first, though. But yes, Radical. Have a good one. And yes, people always got their big takes that they want to talk about. I kind of wish we got that big scene in the books with Jane, Arryn, and Jace instead of that small scene with Rhaena. Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of, characters, right? Jace is a much bigger character right now, so it would make sense to give more, like, screen time to Jace, and that's something I think I predicted a lot of things in this season, and some of them have been wrong. One of them was I thought we would see Jace become more of a prominent character, and he really hasn't been. Like, he's not been in many scenes, and so we're just now starting to get the ball rolling with Jace. So, I don't know. We'll see how that kind of goes forward. Yeah, I do agree, Reese, on the idea of, like, we sometimes like repeat things, or it's like sometimes we have dialogue where we don't need to hear it. Like, Dragon War is bad. It's like, yeah, it's obvious. You don't even need Dragon War in there. You need just war is bad, just in general. Aegon, I wonder why you think that Daemon screwing his mom was really good. I wonder why. I wish they hadn't taken us to Winterfell on the Wall as the opening scene of the season for nothing to happen. Just a mention last episode. Could have kept the North a mention and added Daeron scenes. So I think the reason that they did that, Ginger, my guess is they're kind of, and I agree with Ricky, this is kind of his ideas, that we're going to be going towards, like, a conflict with the Starks and the Lannisters. And so they wanted to have the opening shot reflect how I think the end of the season's going to be, and have it kind of come full circle. But I do agree, and I talked about this in that stream, or when we were talking about episode 1, it felt really weird that of all the places that we started episode 1, we started with the plot line that had the least to do with what was going on. Like, think about where all the things where you could have started episode 1. Sorry, I almost lost my voice there. it could have been a continuation of Rhaenyra after she learns the news of Luke. You could have seen that raw emotion. You could have seen, directly after Luke, dies, and how Aemond is processing those things, or a shot of Storm's End and all of that, the remnants of Luke and his dragon or whatever, like Rhaenyra finds. You could have had, marshaling down in the Reach, like with Daeron and stuff like that. Like, you could have had a scene with Alicent and, her learning the news, like, I do agree. Even though I like the stuff we got to open episode 1, I do think, like, you're kind of right. I think of all the things we could have started with, that was kind of the weirdest one to me. Hi, Maz. How are you, by the way? Kind of like the Jaime dream scene with his mom. Yes, I agree. Oh, by the way, I had like a mini little heart attack there, because I'm like looking at the restream screen, and so you guys don't see it, but like on half the screen it like shows what's streaming, but I just have it paused because I don't like looking at myself talk while trying to read chat and stuff like that, so I would just pause. Thought we were still on the stream starting soon screen for a second. But yeah, I do agree. Like, Ginger, it's weird because it's like they put that as the main scene to open the episode, and then we don't see it again. Like, we're probably gonna see some stuff of it come towards the end of the season, but like, it does feel very jarring, right? It's like if you think about, season 1, what happens in the like prologue right there, like, happens. It has a direct connection to where we're like how the ball gets rolling. I mean, season 4, where you have Tywin, burning or basically shifting the way ice is. I'm, losing a word here, but making 2 swords out of ice, right? Directly, ties us into the interesting plot of the season. Ties up like the Red Wedding stuff, kind of the finality of the Starks being taken out. Yeah, I do think in terms of a start for a season, it was kind of a weird one. Hot takes. Mothers in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire only serve to get their kids killed. Cersei, Catelyn, Rhaenyra, all that. Yeah, I think that's an interesting point of that, is Dakota's like, the actions that those mothers do to try and protect their children a lot of times end up being the decisions that hurt their children. That's the interesting part about it, right? If you think about Cersei, all these things she's doing to distance the Tyrells from Tommen, right? In reality, having the Tyrells on Tommen's side would help solidify his reign and make him even more safe. And so she makes those decisions that probably are going to lead to his death. I think that's a great take, Dakota. Without Aemond, Team Green are finished. Oh, yes, 100%. Hi, AC. How are you? I'm still wondering how we will bring more story to House of the Dragon when they don't have many side characters to follow, and they are all going to be in Westeros. I miss Essos. Okay, so this is something I kind of talked about as well. We didn't really expand the plot in terms of like Game of Thrones. Like, if you think about Game of Thrones, you have like at least like 6 to 8 different areas we're usually in. At least if you're talking about the first season, it kind of expands as you go further. But it is something where we haven't really opened the world up. It's really just Dragonstone, King's Landing, and Harrenhal is where we're mainly at. So yeah, that is, I think, a criticism of House of the Dragon. We haven't really started up plot lines of elsewhere. Like, we've started to get the trickle up plot of like the Vale. We had the North for like I can't say one episode, like 5 minutes of one episode. So, I feel like they're making the Riverlands plot more about Daemon obsessed with being king instead of the war. Yeah, I think something that's interesting, and I did briefly talk about this, is they kind of have changed Daemon's like character from the book anyway. As there wasn't this big issue. It kind of feels like in the book, Daemon goes to the Riverlands and handles business, and it's not kind of this whole drawn out plot. So it is interesting. Well, I can't really add my opinions yet on the plot because we haven't seen the Harrenhal plot concluded, which it probably will conclude by the end of the season. So just have to see how that goes. Hot take: the small folk will eat the dragons. Hey, if you don't have food, you're eating the dragons. That's all I gotta say. Last episode should have been more about Aemond. Aemond needs more screen time. I will say, yeah, I think it would have been nice to get more into Aemond and what he thought about, the stuff that happened with Aegon and all that. And he had a perfect opportunity to do so, right? Because Aemond can't really talk about these things, but if Helena already knows what happened, that would have been the perfect opportunity to give us more into Aemond, to give us more of what he's thinking. So maybe we'll see that in the next coming episodes, right? This could be something they could have just saved, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's so much a pacing thing, but they slowed down to focus on thematic elements. This season featured the Brackens and Blackwoods heavily. It's showing the overall consequence of war. I do agree. I think they are really taking a slowdown to really, really, really put the nail in the head that war is a bad thing, which is a good idea, because that's really one of the biggest themes for George. But there's a point where it just gets like kind of repetitive, and where like you have to look at the believability of characters. Like, that's been my whole issue with Rhaenyra. It took Rhaenyra how many episodes, like half the season, to realize that, you know, war has to happen. Like, yeah, that's my thing, is like, I think that theme is good, Maz, and I think it's good that we took the time to slow down, and it's good for some characters, but other characters it's kind of hurt them. Dakota, why are you calling me a nerd now? Why are you bullying me? The show is dead without Aemond. I don't know about that one. I think Aemond's good, but I don't know about that one. That's a good point, Reese, about Balon and Alyssa. That's true, because that's one of the things that, like, I think Balon was, like, really in love with Alyssa. Like, I don't think that, you know, for instance, I don't think Ulf is his kid or something like that, so I definitely could see that. Exactly, Ghost. You tell him. Hot take, Aemond being ruthless and cruel is just a facade, and he is really just someone who wants to be loved and accepted. Yeah, I definitely think that's the case. Aemond is someone that has kind of a reputation now at this point, right? He's kind of like Tyrion in a way, right? Tyrion outwards is someone that, you know, plays the monster role. He tries to, you know, have power, right? It's really kind of that Tyrion just wants someone to actually, like, love him, and so he treats people how people treat him. So yeah, I do think that is true, Walter. Grease should definitely use that for his videos. It's a great line. You're so creative. Man, somebody's got to tell that guy. I'd be shocked at this point if Rhaena doesn't claim Sheep Stealer in the Vale. I agree. Hot take. The Goblin King is a benevolent ruler who never silences his people. That's a big hot take, Dakota. I don't know if I agree with that one. Yeah, I don't know. He likes Maegor the Cruel, so I don't know if I agree with that one. I do think Rhaena is probably going to get Sheep Stealer. I think Rhaena is going to get a lot of Nettles' arc, Reese, but we'll see. Oh, see, this is a very philosophical one, Dakota. Not all war is bad. Let's do a theoretical here. Okay, so World War II. We're not going to use that one word because that's not so good for YouTube. They don't like that word. But, you know, the Germans do a bunch of evil actions, okay? Or a specific group with some pretty evil actions. How do you stop them? You've tried peace. You've tried all these things. You've tried appeasement. Doesn't work. So at what point is war needed to take that down so that more innocent people don't die? I don't disagree with you, Dakota. I don't disagree with you. Hot take. Extending Jace's story in the North a few episodes would have made the first half of the season much more interesting. I think it would have made it much more interesting for Jace as a character. Jace doesn't have really much to do throughout the first, like, 4 episodes. Like, the first half of the season, he doesn't have much to do. So I think giving us another plot line also would be good, because it would kind of, like, I feel like it'd be a breath of fresh air, you know? Because right now it's like we're either with Rhaenyra, we're with Alicent, or with Daemon, and so that would kind of maybe help freshen it up a little bit. I wonder if the Children of the Forest are communicating to Alice and planning to be a mystical character in this series, just full blown pulling out our magical characters' heartstrings. AC, I definitely think they could be. I mean, think about the powers that Alice has. She's able to send like dreams and or like visions to people. It's very similar to what like Bran kind of gets, especially when he's becoming, the three-eyed crow. Like, I think there's a big possibility. You also look at Harrenhal and kind of the backstory that was said in the show. I think that's very possible. Hi, Zeno. Yeah, I also saw that. Alice, Rivers, and Ramsay look very similar. Reese, I think it's just one of those things where they didn't really want to show the burning mill. One, for budget, and two, because they wanted this thing of like, why glorify the battle? Why glorify this war? It was all, or this battle, it was all for nothing, right? It was literally for nothing. It was two families that just hated each other, and so a bunch of people had to die. Yes, Eris did appear. He's also there. He's still in chat. You can still catch him. Do you think we'll see any of the Blackwood side characters besides? Yes. I think there's a good chance, Joey, the way Daemon maybe is able to unite the Riverlands is if he condones William for his actions, and so we'll see kind of some of the other Blackwoods, I'll just say. But yes, I do think we will see Black Alley, probably. You miss nothing, but Ned misses his father and brother, I'm sure. Eris? Eris. I need to get your rationale. Since you're in chat, I know you're very rational, man. Why kill Rickard? I'm just saying. Like, I get killing Brandon. All the power to you. He came threatening your son, the prince. Like, yeah, I mean, all I'm saying. But I'm just curious why the father, because that one seemed a bit too far. Also calling for Ned and Robert's heads probably was not the best idea. But I get your rationale. I've made YouTube videos just on you specifically. So, I'm just saying. My hot take is that they haven't been doing much Cannibals and Kwan, guys. That's a staple of A Song of Ice and Fire. Especially of the later books. Do you think we will see all the Winter Wolf characters? I don't think we'll see all of them. I think mainly because if we're going to have kind of this Stark-Lannister kind of conflict, we're not really going to have a lot of time to introduce a bunch of new characters. So I think we may see a few of them, but not all of them. Do you think we will see the Three-Eyed Raven in the cave? See him plan something like to make Bran future happens. I'm thinking way off, but if we can get a Children of the Forest, I don't think we're going to see any of that, AC. Personally, in House of the Dragon anyway. Eris, why did you go mad? You had the early makings of a king. Zeno, there's a certain video that you can watch that explains that perfectly. It took me like 45 minutes to get through that exact question. If Rhaena tames Sheepstar, does that mean Nettles is... Joey, I've said this multiple times, Joey, and I'm just going to tell you straight. There's no Nettles. Nettles is not a character in the show. I mean, unless they pull a fast one, she ain't in the show. J-Lord, to a degree, I agree as well. But I mean that in terms of, like, if you're going to go away from Fire and Blood, for instance, execute it right. Dakota, you are always right. Not sure if this is a hot take, but I think all the character development in House of the Dragon is not good. Every character gets too little screen time, and when they do, it's not good enough for me to care. Ooh, that's an interesting one, Ditto. That is definitely a hot take. I think that certain characters, I would agree with you. Like, one of my hot takes that I had written down that I actually kind of agree with is, like, Corlys is not a good character in House of the Dragon because he is just missing from, like, half the episodes. If you watch from right now, from House of the Dragon Season 1 to where we are right now, he's probably missing about half the episodes. In the episodes that he's in, he maybe has about 3 scenes at max, unless we're talking about specific episodes. So I don't disagree in terms of, I think a lot of the secondary characters really struggle with getting enough time to develop, right? I do think the main characters, they've done a decent job of. I think Aegon, they hit it out of the park. I think Viserys in season 1 they did a good job. Like majority good, but then there's bad things in there too. I think Rhaenyra has been fine, but not up to kind of my standards of what I think the character should be. But I definitely see, if you're a book fan, especially, why you would have that take, Ditto. Ron, I agree. Don't think that's a hot take at all. I think that's what the sentiment of the community should be. The Alicent Rhaenyra dynamic just completely halted any Rhaenyra development at all. And I think that scene at the Sept is... I am planning to do a video after season 2 is done where I want to look at the 10 best and worst, Fire and Blood changes, or I might just have it be like best and worst scenes maybe. That one to me is probably the second worst scene of the entire show. I think the Rhaenys scene in episode 9's worse, but that one's probably like second or third for me. I appreciated the Tumbleton name drop with you. Knowing his wife has family there will make it interesting to see what they do with that battle. Yeah, I am very scared for his wife and his child, I'm assuming. I think that's his child. I'm very worried about them. That's all I'll say. Hot take. Season 3, 4, or 5, if they extend to it, will be the best of the series. They should be, right? Like, this is how theoretically the show should go. Season 1 should be the worst season. Season 2 should be, like, a little better. Season 3 should be better. Season 4, like, it should only get better as it goes, right? Like, Game of Thrones was never that because so many people have different viewpoints of what the best book of the series is. Like, most people say Storm of Swords is the best season or best book. So, some people will say, season 4 is the best. Some people will say season 3 is the best. Some people will say season 1's the best. Like, season 2, like, yeah, that's not the argument for House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon should only get progressively better, in my opinion. And yeah, Zeno, I think that it is good to change certain things from House of the Dragon, or not from House of the Dragon, from Fire and Blood, because you need to. At certain things, you need to. I think the biggest thing that I have is how do you execute those things? So, for instance, if you take Fire and Blood is almost like it's all there for you. You don't need to make anything up, right? Like it's boom. You just put this in there and you're good to go. And so when you change stuff from that, that's where I have a lot of issue because you didn't execute it as well as it could have been, and you had the formula right there to do it. So, I don't know. I think that's also one of the things George is pretty frustrated about as well, even though I think he likes the show like me. I think he's like me or Ricky, whereas like he's very critical of the show, but he likes the show. Spicy hot D takes, huh? Yes. I want all the nice hot takes that Aerys II will enjoy. My rationale is Fire is pretty and I really like heads. Fair enough. I can't argue with that. A man likes what he likes. Kraken Stark is overrated. Ooh, that's not even a House of the Dragon one, really. That's just a Fire and Blood one, or I guess just in general, Song of Ice and Fire one. I don't know, like, if that's overrated or not. I know people really like him. I've never been, like, the biggest fan or anything of the character. I think he's a good character, but I don't know. I'm still waiting for Daron the Good to join me in this chat. One day he may. One day it's going to end up happening where somebody's going to hear us talking about this so much they're just going to make a second account with that. Hot take. I prefer there being less comedy in House of the Dragon than Game of Thrones. After season 5, the comedy was forced. Well, Maz, the problem is that they stopped being able to have the comedy of the book, and so they had to write their own comedy. So, if you have George R. R. Martin type of comedy, it works pretty well, right? House of the Dragon is kind of just swayed away from comedy for the most part. Like, there's very little comedy. There's very little levity in House of the Dragon. So, yeah, I could see why you might think that, right? House of the Dragon, there's not a lot of funny stuff to be found in terms of what's happening on screen. So, yeah. Why do you think they are cutting Nettles, who will be Daemon's lover? So, I think what they maybe are going for is they're going for a Daemon character arc where, for instance, like we saw with the vision of Lena, where it's like, did you, watch over our daughters and things like that. Daemon, I think, is going to have a character arc where he tries to be a better man. Not to say he's a good man or any of that stuff. Saying that he's going to try and make up for some of the things he's done. And so I think they wanted to change that from, having him having a romance with Nettles or some sort of father-mother thing, to having a relationship with probably Rhaena, like his daughter. I don't know. I think that that's maybe why they went that way. Because Rhaenyra and Daemon already have no trust. They're already having issues. When we get to a situation later on when maybe Rhaenyra is a little bit more distrustful, she's more broken as a character, you almost don't need the Nettles thing for her to already believe that maybe he's doing something else, right? He's going to try and try to be a king himself, right? And maybe he was going to have, Rhaena come after him and all that stuff. Like, that right there, you don't need Nettles, even though we love Nettles on this channel, but maybe that's why. That's my rationale. It's hard to talk about it because we haven't even gotten to that plot line yet at all in the show, so we'll see. Oh boy, Ginger. Oh boy. Also, Arian is here too. Wow. My God, we got all of the guys, the lads. You know what I've noticed? We got a lot of meat in this chat, okay? We got a lot of the Targaryen guys. Where's the equality here? Where's Visenya Targaryen? Come on, man. So we gotta see I want to see Visenya in here. We gotta get Shiera in here. We gotta make it as awkward as possible. Have Shiera with Aegor in chat. That'd be great. I love that. They made side characters from the books into main characters in the show. What do you mean by that, Kenshin? I need more on that. Hot take. Rhaenyra does nothing in the books until after the gullet, so I'm not surprised she's been a flat character and the writers are struggling finding her something to do. See, Reese, that's not my issues with Rhaenyra, right? Because I've said in the book, right, that's what Rhaenyra more or less does. My issue with the character of Rhaenyra is in the book, it makes sense that Rhaenyra almost completely shuts down. Why she's just, it seems not like Rhaenyra herself doesn't want to do anything, or she is being forced to not be able to do stuff. In the book, it feels like, no, Rhaenyra is just, she's not in the right mindset to actually be able to run a war, right? I've talked about this over and over and over again. And so because they made Rhaenyra less of an emotional character where she's kind of for instance, this is why I always compare Rhaenyra to someone like Catelyn or Cersei, for instance, because Rhaenyra is someone that can be very impulsive. She can be very emotional. And so the Rhaenyra of the show is not that. The Rhaenyra of the show is very emotionally intelligent, right? She's someone that doesn't lose her cool very often and all that stuff. And so I think why, people that want to see Rhaenyra develop or find her more boring, I think a lot of it is because the character is just significantly different. Based upon the character of Rhaenyra in the show, it feels like Rhaenyra should be smart. She should be emotionally intelligent, that she should understand that she needs to take actions in this war for the war to progress or do any of those things. So I do think it's the writers struggling to find something to do with her because she doesn't do a lot. And this is a problem I talked about before the season started. What were they going to do with characters like Alicent and Rhaenyra who don't do a lot during this time period? And so some of that is season 1, right? That they didn't start to build Rhaenyra in a way that would have, molded better into season 2. And a part of that's also that they have written the characters just differently than the book was. I agree, Manveer. That's been my biggest complaint of the entire show so far. I just feel like they're going for a very slow burn of the character of Rhaenyra. And so what now occurs now is every time I see Rhaenyra, I just want to see her show some emotion. And that doesn't mean she's going to become Mad Queen Rhaenyra. I just want to see the character maybe explode or just have something. for instance, the best example, the one Ricky has always said when we talk about this topic on stream, Robb Stark, when he just breaks down after Ned's death, right? He's hitting the tree and all that stuff. Like, I want to see Rhaenyra a little pissed off. Like, I want, like, I literally said this when I was watching, the show with my dad, for episode 5, and that we get the Visenya, name drop or whatever. And I was like, man, we need some damn Visenya around here. Like, holy cow, we got to get this ball rolling. I don't know. Oh, yeah. DJ, that's one of the things I talk about the Maester conspiracy. Fire and Blood, the writers, the Maesters, they try to make Rhaenyra and Daemon look much worse than they truly are, and they make the Greens much more likable. So for this season, in terms of story-wise, I think we're going to be heading towards the Battle of the Gullet, just gearing up for it, getting the Dragon Seed plot where it needs to go, having probably the fish feed, more of the conflict in the Riverlands, and kind of getting all of our plots for the Blacks kind of more in line, right? Like the Daemon and Rhaenyra plot, all that stuff. It's good to be back. Drinking Wildfire was not the smartest idea. Maybe I'll force that full egg to drink it. Hey, Aegon also does some wild shit. So, maybe you can help him at Summerhall, Arian. That's all I'll say. Don't get me wrong. I think you should criticize the show, but for House of Dragon, I feel some have to look past the love for Fireblood and criticize it on a film level. I agree. I do think there are people that criticize the show based upon if it changes something. And that, to me, is not a good way to look at it. I think that sometimes even my own bias gets in the way of that. But, like, for instance, a change like this, right? This is just in terms of the continuity of the world and the show. They changed the Dragon Seed kind of starting plot where it's, okay, we have these scrolls, we have the histories where we can find all of the Targaryen bastards that would have some sort of connection to being able to ride a dragon, however thin. That makes zero sense. That does not make sense in general. Like, I just don't, like, how would anyone even know that? Like, that just does not make sense. And so when they do changes, I just want them to execute them in terms of, does it fit the continuity of the story? That's kind of how I usually try to gauge it. Reese, that's a good point, right? Like, that is a good point. I think it is more delivery than it is just actual, like, jokes. That's a good point, Reese. Do you think if House of the Dragon stays successful, they will make most, if not all, of the Targaryen years of rule? Because I think much of it would not translate too well to TV. I do agree, like, you can't do Jaehaerys' rule. That wouldn't make any sense. Like, you'd have to, there's only certain moments that I think you can do. I think you can do Maegor and Aenys' conflict, or Maegor's kind of war on the faith. You could do that part of it. You could do a Conquest of Dorne show. In terms of, I think the Aegon Conquest of Dorne would be better. You could possibly do Daeron's Conquest of Dorne as well, but I don't know about that one. You could do the Blackfyre Rebellion is a good one. The Dunk and Egg stuff is good. You could do a War of the Stepstones. I think that one would translate, well, as, if you're following like Meleys and Jaehaerys II, and, you could do something like that, and you would have familiar characters in there that we would know, like Barristan and, Tywin and, a bunch of different characters. So you could do stuff like that. That's the ones with the Targaryens that kind of come to mind. Yeah, DJ, I definitely think that could be kind of where they're going with that. I think they should have had Alicent go mad after Jaehaerys' death, be paranoid about more dangers, fearing the gods after she thinks they are punishing her for the romance with Cole. Definitely could have been something they wanted to do. Grease, Maegor would kill all of us if he was in chat. No, he would not. Whoa, Zeno, whoa. That's slander. Maegor would only kill you if you were just saying, I couldn't do things, or that I'm not basically like above you, yeah, he'd be fine. And also, there's other Targaryens in here, so only some of you would probably die. Hot take: Mysaria has been way too much of a good character so far. How do I feel about that? I don't know about that one. Like, yes, she helped do the blood and cheese, but it was kind of like a trade deal situation for her freedom. That did lead to one kid getting killed, so that's not great. But I feel like that's more on Daemon than it is Mysaria. We also don't know where this plot with Rhaenyra is going with Mysaria. What's going on in King's Landing with like the handmaiden she sent. I don't know. We'll have to see so far. I don't have too many issues with Mysaria yet. Chrissy, don't put those thoughts into the chat's head. They get wild. HBO is trying to create... Well, yeah, that's what almost every single company is trying to do. Yeah, I don't know. You're trying to make a universe where people are very involved, so they'll keep buying products or keep paying your subscription to watch the products that you have that are in the world. Daemon is boring me this season, needs to do something. See, I think this is where we're kind of like at an impasse, because I think a lot of fans are like you and believe that. To me, I don't feel like that. I think Daemon's plot, for the most part, has been the most consistent of the season, where I've had little things wrong with it. I think it's, for the most part, been the strongest plot so far of the season, because it's had good character work. It's let us dive into a character that I think was really, 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 really needing some work after season 1. So I actually think that I'm kind of the opposite. I think Daemon's arc, I think the one thing I will say is I have to see how it plays out. Because if we had all these episodes where it was just straight up a character dive, like just more or less him diving into his psychology, trying to grow him as a character, if that doesn't pay off by the end of the season, or it doesn't pay off in the next season, wherever we're at, then it'll feel wasted, right? We spent so much time on one of these slower plots and it didn't go anywhere. So it's going to depend on how they execute the conclusion of the character before I'll sit here and go, that was kind of too slow. It wasn't good enough. Aegon, you can be on the throne. I don't mind you. You're a good guy, dude. Speaking of me respecting Maegor, that poll was the first debate we had. You should have known I would be trouble. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. You're a little bit of a troublesome one. Excuse me, Aegon. With all due respect, you did start a series of wars that almost lost us the throne. I would never. What is that sharp pain in my back? Aerys, I don't know what these guys are talking about. Because I'm just saying, after you died, Viserys took up the throne. He was a great king. Everyone loved him. And I mean, we had like 80 years of peace, after you died. It was a great time. Honestly, I'd rather have Rhaenyra be a monster than be more boring. I agree, Chrissy. I wish we got more of the darker side of Rhaenyra. Not to say I want her to go full monster yet. I want to see like a little bit more of the character changing and evolving as a whole. That's one thing Game of Thrones did really well. And a lot of that's because the source material, of course. But usually a character does not stay the same from the beginning of the season to the end. So we'll see how they end Rhaenyra out this season, and then I'll make my final opinion on Rhaenyra for the first 2 seasons so far. But yeah, I think, I want to see more from the character of Rhaenyra. Peter, I like that. Daemon, I think, has been good this season. Joey, I don't know, Joey. I'm going to lean towards no, because they've kind of gone away from some of the battles, but I'll say no, I guess. Dakota, I'm not going to bother reading that statement because it's not just relevant. Just wait till Fire and Blood Part 2. I'll shine more in that. I've seen it in a dream. Arian, I'm just saying, you said Fire and Blood Part 2 and not Blood and Fire, so I got to give you props. No, whoa. Arian, I like then because I looked down there and I saw you put Blood and Fire, but you said that was a cringe name, and I'm like, amen. That's all I got to say. Amen. It's a cringe name. I agree. I think Robert's Rebellion will be one of the last things they do. It'll be something that I think maybe is done like when we get through kind of the Aegon Conquest stuff that they seem like they have planned, Dunk and Egg, House of the Dragon. I think like Robert's Rebellion will maybe see in another like 10 years. I think it could take that long. I just don't think George wants them to do that right now. I think Robert's Rebellion maybe would be like a 2-season show. Well, it depends. Because if they do all the build up to it, right? If they like, give us a lot of build up in the first season, so we kind of build up to where, the end part is where would you have the end part of season 1 be? Because you would theoretically have like Harrenhal. I'm trying to think about how I would even do it, right? If I was a writer and I was trying to do Robert's Rebellion, how would I even do it? Because the thing is, if you have Harrenhal at like episode 5, right? There's not going to be a ton that happens outside of just straight up build up for the first 4 episodes. Like, we could have Eris and Rhaegar. We could build more into their dynamic and maybe the strains of that relationship. You could see kind of the plotting of building kind of the Northern Coalition and all the alliances that were being built up. And so, like, I think you could expand it and have, like, the Tourney of Harrenhal be around that area of episode 5. And then kind of the ending point of the first season would be, like, the burning or the killing of the Starks. And then, so then you could have the last part of it being like, okay, Robert and Ned getting informed that Eris wants their heads, and Jon Arryn saying, no, we're rebelling against that. And so you'd have the rebellion start in the second season. I don't know though, like, could you theoretically make a 3rd season? I think it'd have to be 2 seasons, but I think you maybe could expand it to 3. Unless they want to get really cool with it and do how I did my Robert's Rebellion stuff and start all the way back at Aegon the Fifth's rule. That's what I did for mine, because that's where it truly begins, really. But, are we talking shit on Arian in chat right now? Don't like that. I don't like that. Definitely could see them doing an anthology thing. I do like that. I agree, Reese. That's kind of my thoughts on it. J-Lord, if you remove Illy from that, then we'll have a discussion. There's nobody else in that conversation outside of Millie. There's Millie, then there's everybody else. Duncan was a D1 basketball player. Oh, God. Dunk would be a very good basketball player. That's all I'm saying. Maybe end season 1 with the calling for... Yeah, that's exactly kind of what I was thinking, maybe. Jace and Helena should get married? Well, if Aegon dies, Baela dies, perfect solve. That's all I'm saying. Perfect solve. Grease Millie is going to DC, and DC is where everything. Hey, I don't care now. Like I'm just saying, I don't really care. All of the like superhero stuff is almost dead at this point. Like Marvel's dead. DC never lived. I shouldn't say that. The Batman movies were great. Some of the Superman movies were good, but yeah, I don't know. A dragon does not concern himself with a sheep's perspective. Arian? I like that. Have some confidence. I like that. Arian. I like that. All right, well, I think that's where I'm going to end the stream. I hope you guys all enjoyed. We did a little bit of hot takes for the stream. we had a lot of, visits from, all over Song of Ice and Fire community, mainly around the Blackfire Rebellion time period, but, thank you guys all for watching, and I'll see you guys all